I was standing in my parents' driveway, my hands shaking, while my sister smiled like nothing was wrong. My mom was crying, my dad wouldn't look at me, and the real estate agent kept glancing at her phone. That's when my sister said, "You should be happy for me," and I realized they'd already decided who mattered in this family. But to understand how I ended up confronting them like that, you need to know how I found out my parents gave her their house, while I was living in my car. And yeah, before you judge me, ask yourself this: what would you have done if the people who raised you chose someone else over you again? I was living in my car in the parking lot behind a closed grocery store. Not because I was reckless, not because I didn't try, but because sometimes life doesn't care how hard you work. It was late fall, cold enough that my breath fogged the windshield, warm enough that I could convince myself I didn't need to turn the engine on all night. I had a system: crack the windows, 2 hoodies, blanket tucked under my legs, phone charger plugged into a portable battery I guarded like gold. That night I was scrolling on my phone, killing time, when I opened a real estate app. I don't even know why. Maybe self-torture, maybe hope. Probably both. And then I saw it. The house. My parents' house. Same white siding, same crooked mailbox my dad never fixed, same oak tree out front where my sister and I used to carve our initials. Listed as charming family home, recently transferred, perfect for growing families. Transferred. Not sold. Transferred. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might throw up right there in the driver's seat. I zoomed in, looked at the address, checked it again. Same street, same zip code. And under owner, there it was. My sister's name. I just stared at the screen. My hands went numb. My ears started ringing. Because 2 weeks ago, I'd called my parents and told them I was struggling, that I was between apartments, that I just needed time. My mom had sighed and said, "We can't help everyone." So tell me, what would you have felt in that moment? Growing up, my sister was always the golden child. Let's call her Emily. Emily was loud, confident, the kind of person teachers loved because she talked a lot and smiled while doing it. She got average grades, but somehow always got praised for effort. I was the quiet one. Good grades, never in trouble. The kid adults forgot was even in the room. At family dinners, it was always, "Emily's doing amazing with the kids," or "Emily's so overwhelmed, we need to support her." No one ever asked how I was doing. Not really. When Emily got pregnant at 19, my parents rallied around her like she'd won an award. "She needs us," my mom said. When I got laid off from my job years later, my dad said, "You'll figure it out." Same family, different rules. And don't get me wrong, I loved my nieces, I still do. That's what made this hurt worse, because the excuse was always the same. It's for the kids. After college, I moved back home for a bit to save money. Emily had already moved out, married, divorced, remarried, and had 2 kids by then. Living at home was tense. Every time Emily visited, it was like the house shifted to make room for her. "Oh, you're in the guest room? Emily needs that for the kids," my mom would say. Or, "Can you park down the street? Emily's minivan needs the driveway." One night at dinner, my dad said, "Emily and her husband are looking for a bigger place. It's so hard with kids." I nodded, took another bite of my food. Then he added, casually, "You know, stability is important when you're raising a family." I remember thinking that was a weird thing to say, but I didn't realize then that it was a warning. If you've ever been the invisible sibling, you know that feeling. The sense that decisions are being made around you, not with you. And that's exactly what was happening. Fast forward a few years. I finally got a decent job. Not amazing, but steady. I moved out again, rented a small apartment, started rebuilding. Then the company downsized. I was laid off with 2 weeks severance and a "we'll keep your resume on file." I burned through my savings faster than I expected. Rent went up, job applications went nowhere. I called my parents. "I just need a little help," I said. "Alone, or even just to stay for a month." There was a long pause. Then my mom said, "We really can't. Things are complicated right now." Complicated. That's when I ended up in my car. And that's when they gave my sister the house. Tell me, honestly, does that sound like coincidence to you? After I saw the listing, I didn't sleep. I watched the sun come up through the windshield, my phone still glowing with that photo of the house. Transferred. So I did what I always did when something didn't make sense. I dug. I checked public records. Property transfers are public if you know where to look. And there it was, clear as day. My parents had transferred the deed to Emily 3 months earlier. No sale price, no mortgage, just hand it over. My chest felt tight, like someone was sitting on it. 3 months. That meant when I called them asking for help, they already knew they'd given away the only safety net they had. And they didn't tell me. I called my mom that morning. She answered on the 3rd ring, cheerful. "Hi, honey." "Why is the house in Emily's name?" I asked. Silence. Then she said, "How do you know about that?" So that's how I knew. They invited me over to talk. I almost didn't go. Part of me wanted to disappear, drive until the gas ran out, never look back. But another part of me, maybe the part that was tired of being invisible, needed answers. Emily was there when I arrived, sitting at the kitchen table like she owned the place. Because she did. My dad stood by the sink, staring at his coffee. My mom kept wringing her hands. "We did it for the kids," my mom said immediately. "They need stability." "And I don't?" I asked. Emily sighed. "Don't make this about you." That sentence lit something in me. "When did you decide this?" I asked. My dad finally spoke. "It made sense. You don't have kids. Emily does." "So I'm worth less?" I said. "That's not what we're saying," my mom said quickly. That it was exactly what they were saying. Emily leaned back in her chair. "You're being dramatic. You always are." That was funny, because I was the quiet one, the one who swallowed everything. But something had shifted, and they had no idea what I'd already found. Here's the part they didn't know. Years earlier, when I was still working steadily, my parents had asked me for help. They were behind on property taxes. Just temporary, they said. I paid it, all of it. And because I was cautious, I'd made them sign a simple agreement. Not ownership, but acknowledgement of repayment. At the time, it felt unnecessary. Now, it felt like a lifeline. I hadn't mentioned it yet. I wanted to be sure. So after that first confrontation, I went to a legal aid office. Free consultations, long wait, folding chairs, but worth it. I showed them the agreement, the transfer records, the timeline. The lawyer raised his eyebrows. "This is interesting," he said. That's when I realized something was seriously wrong. And maybe, just maybe, I wasn't as powerless as they thought. According to the lawyer, the transfer could be challenged, especially given the outstanding debt, especially given that I'd been excluded under questionable circumstances, especially because my parents had represented the house as their asset when borrowing from me. In simple terms, they couldn't just give it away without settling what they owed. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt sick, because this meant taking action against my own family. So let me ask you, would you have gone through with it? I didn't tell them right away. I waited. Emily started posting online, photos of our new home, renovation plans, paint samples. One caption read, "So grateful for my parents' generosity." Generosity. Meanwhile, I was still sleeping in my car. I asked my parents one more time for help, gave them a chance. "I know about the transfer," I said. "I know about everything. Can we talk about something fair?" My dad said, "We've already done enough." That was it. That was the moment. I filed the claim. The official notice arrived at the house on a Tuesday. Emily called me screaming. "How could you do this to me?" she yelled. "You're trying to take my kids home." "I'm trying to survive," I said. My mom left me voicemails, crying, begging, saying I was tearing the family apart. Funny how fairness always sounds like betrayal to people who benefit from unfairness. The process dragged on for months. Emily tried to paint me as the villain. My parents backed her. But facts don't care about family narratives. The court ruled that the debt had to be settled before the transfer could stand. And guess what? They couldn't pay it. So the transfer was voided. The house went back into my parents' name, temporarily, until a new agreement was reached. And this time, I was at the table. That's how I ended up standing in that driveway, months later, with a real estate agent and my family staring at me like they didn't recognize me anymore. The house was being sold. Not gifted. Not quietly transferred. Sold. The proceeds were split after debts were settled. Emily was furious. "This was supposed to be mine," she said. I looked at her and felt calm. "For once," I said, "it wasn't." I used my share to get back on my feet. Apartment, therapy, a sense of self I didn't know I'd lost. My parents downsized. Emily had to figure things out on her own. And me? I finally understood something. Family isn't about who gets protected at all costs. It's about fairness, respect, seeing each other as equals. They still don't really talk to me, but that's okay, because for the first time, I chose myself. So tell me, if you were in my shoes, would you have forgiven them, or would you have walked away like I did?